To offer you today is a very quick trip through more than 10 centuries of history of Marea, archaeological site in northern Egypt. I will try to show how economical and cultural ties of this settlement and its inhabitants were changing during this long time period. So Marea is located some 50 kilometers south east of Alexandria, on the way to important late Antique pilgrimage sites in Abu Mina. It lies on the southern shore of the lake Mariusz, and it consists of the mainland part and an island, which is seen over here. Starting from Hellenistic period, the first traces of occupation of this place are associated with 3rd century BC, and they are concentrated on the island. No traces of Hellenistic presence are for now recognized in the other parts of site. The French team was working there, discovered foundations of houses made of crushed rock, and the upper parts of the walls of this building were made of mud bricks. This form of buildings is very typical for Egypt, building tradition. These are so-called tower houses in form of rectangular or square, 3 or even 4-storied buildings. So this shows that in the beginning the inhabitants of this settlement were closely tied with Egyptian building tradition. Later on in Roman periods, the occupation of the site is expanding. Beside the traces of occupation on the island associated with lime production and metallurgical activity, also other traces of production are recognized in the mainland, including a wine press which was discovered recently underneath the early Byzantine church. What is more important, underneath the same church, large pottery kiln was found. We can see it over here. It has 8-meter diameter, so it's one of the biggest structures of this type from Roman period in the Mariusz region. In this pottery kiln, very specific amphora were produced. There are 2 types which were recognized. So-called Egyptian amphora II, which is seen over here, and is imitating a very well-known tradition in the Mediterranean region, also known as amphora of Dressel II-4 type, produced in, for example, in Italy, Spain, and North Africa. And the other type is Egyptian amphora III, which is its form is rooted in Egyptian tradition. So we see during Roman period there are 2 traditions on the site, as in the case of pottery production. Some of these amphoras have stamps with Greek inscriptions with names. In this case, Dionysius, which may point that this man was responsible for production of amphoras or managing the whole facilities connected with also production of wine. Very close to Marea, just 2 kilometers southwest, there is another site with very similar remains, both pottery kilns and wine presses, and the production of the same amphoras. Over here, the amphoras have a different stamp with a different name, Apollonius. In Roman period, these both sites were part of a much more larger economical system, which was organized on the southern shores of Lake Mariusz, where an enormous large quantities of sites with pottery kilns and pottery wasters of this Egyptian amphora 2 and 3 are found. These amphora were produced both for local needs of, for example, Alexandria, but they were also exported to other regions, like, for example, in Italy. On the other hand, amphora of this type were found on shipwrecks in the Red Sea, so it makes point that they were also exported to Far East. During the Roman period, it seems that the Marea was something more than other sites like which were mentioned on the southern coast of Lake Mariusz. The difference is that it had at least 3 quays, which were probably built to support the exportation of this amphora with wine to Alexandria. But only during the early Byzantine period we are dealing with enormous construction boom, which was covering almost the whole area which is on the map. The magnetic map shows the dense network of streets and buildings. Also the elevation map is pointing where the buildings were created. On this satellite imagery we can see some of the buildings which were already excavated and which were recognized on the surface. This includes large bath building, workshops, another bath building, big bakery with mill, and a very wide street leading to the church, surrounded by workshops and storerooms, and a waterfront in the bay, which is over here. So the question is why during early Byzantine periods this construction boom happened. The simplest explanation of this situation is taking into consideration the appearing of this already mentioned large pilgrimage sanctuary in Abu Mena. It was one of the most important early Christian pilgrimage centers which attracted Christians not only from Egypt but also from other parts of Mediterranean. So it seems that Marea, which was on the way to Abu Mena from Alexandria, became a pilgrimage harbor, and this fact boosted its development. Besides the private buildings which were mentioned before, of course, during the Byzantine period we have also dwellings. This is one of already fully excavated houses, which we can see is well rooted in Mediterranean traditions of dwelling architecture rather than Egyptian ones. It was built completely from ashlar blocks. It has a spacious courtyard and a row of shops on the southern side. The early Byzantine period is also a time when large quantities of imported woolly goods are arriving to Marea, including marbles from Peloponnesus, Western Asia Minor, and also Greece. But on the other hand, also Porphyro Rosso and the granite from Eastern Desert is in Egypt is arriving also to the side. When we have a closer look at the pottery from early Byzantine period, beside those forms which were associated with cooking and preparation of food, which were of local regional production, other kinds of potteries, it means fine pottery and amphoras, were mainly imported. The most popular forms came from Pisidia in Asia Minor. This is late Roman D. And concerning amphoras, these are later on one amphoras from Cilicia, later on amphora 3 from southwestern Asia Minor, later on 4 amphora from southern Palestine, and we get also small quantities of regional product, later on amphora 5-6, which was produced in Albumena and also in western delta. During early Islamic period, it seems that something changed. Although the site wasn't abandoned, but we are dealing with a construction decline. No new buildings are created, but the old ones were still in use, but in a different way. For example, bigger houses are divided into smaller ones, and the way how these older spaces are used has changed drastically. Instead of mortar or stone floors, tamped earth appeared, as you can see on these photos. But the floral remains show that the diet of residents of Marea was still varied. It included different kinds of corn, fruits and nuts. Also, it seems that even though after Arabic conquest, new religions showed up in Egypt, it didn't affect especially the population of Marea. We can see the high quantities of pig remains in the archaeological material excavated in Marea, which points to the fact that the residents of Marea were still Christians in early Islamic period. Ostraka, which are pretty often found on the site, show that during early Islamic period, also administrative and economical relations and bureaucracy still functioned. It shows that, for example, this one, that a ship arrived to Marea with 400 collateral. This intriguing word, but it means probably a container for some goods which were produced in Marea or its region. In early Islamic period, the pottery assemblage is clearly changing. Instead of imported fine wares, we have mainly Egyptian production from Aswan, like Egyptian red stickware A, or from Middle Egypt. Pottery of cooking type is still regional, but amphoras are completely changing. There are no imports from other parts of Mediterranean. The late Roman 5 and 6 is dominating the assemblage, and some imports from the Upper Egypt are also found. For example, late Roman 7 amphora and Egyptian amphora 8. So, taking into consideration that this is the end of my time, I hope that I've showed you that how the traditions and economical relations of Marea were changing during these 10 centuries. Thank you.